The movie begins on Halloween night in 2023, with a narrator explaining that a murder took place 35 years earlier, in which 3 girls were killed. In 1987, Tiffany Clark was found murdered in her garage. She had been stabbed 66 times on her 16th birthday. 2 days later, Marissa Song was killed in a cabin in the woods after being stabbed 16 times on her 16th birthday. Then, 2 days after that, on Halloween night, H.E.Z. Hernandez, who was also 16 years old, was stabbed 16 times in a parking lot. After that, the killer vanished, and the entire town began searching for him. He became known as the 16-year-old girl's killer. He wore all black and a mask, and his outfit became infamous in the town, so much so that people started wearing the same costume every Halloween. We then see a crime journalist named Chris DuPassage, who is giving a tour of the murder sites where the killer committed his crimes. After that, we move to Jamie, who is at home getting ready to go out. Her mother is annoyed by the loud music, and Jamie tells her she's going to meet Amelia because they won 2 tickets to a Killer Instinct concert. Her mother tries to convince her to stay home on Halloween night and help hand out candy to kids. It becomes clear that her parents have been overprotective of her since she was young because of the murders that happened when they were younger, especially now that their daughter is 16 years old. Her mother insists that her father drive her to the concert, wait until it's over, and then bring her back home. Jamie's mother receives a message from Chris DuPassage and lies to her husband, telling him it's just a message from her friends. After some time, the father drives Jamie to the concert. The mother stays home alone, handing out candy to children. A person wearing the killer's costume appears at the door. She opens it and asks if he's alone, but he doesn't respond. He suddenly pulls out a knife and attacks her. She fights back, manages to grab the knife, and threatens him, saying the police are already on the way. He runs out of the house. However, she senses that someone else is behind her. That person attacks her, and although she tries to escape, he catches her and stabs her 16 times, killing her. The title card appears, correcting the mistakes of the past. This confirms that the 16-year-old girl's killer has returned to killing once again. The next day, Jamie goes to school, where the principal offers his condolences for her mother's death. The police question her about where her father was on the night of the murder, and tell her that her mother had exchanged many messages with journalist Chris DuPassage, suggesting that her father may have been jealous. Jamie snaps at them, insisting her father would never do that, and tells them to focus on solving the case that her father failed to solve years ago. She later goes to the school workshop where students are working on their projects. Amelia is trying to build a time machine to travel back to October 27, 1987, the date of the first murder. She hopes they can stop it from happening so Jamie's mother will survive. Jamie later meets with Chris DuPassage despite her father warning her not to. She discovers that the killer had sent her mother a message after his last murder, telling her she would be the next victim. 35 years later, he returned and carried out his threat. Jamie also learns that Chris was never romantically involved with her mother, he was just a friend. They kept it secret because Jamie's father hated him. Jamie realizes her mother never told her about the message because she had lived in fear of the killer her entire life, which is why she had always been so protective. Jamie returns to the workshop, where she meets Amelia, who promises to help her stop the killer. Suddenly, the killer appears behind her and attacks. Jamie runs, uses one of Amelia's inventions, and desperately tries to activate the time machine. At that moment, the killer attacks her and tries to kill her. He slams his knife into the control panel to stop the machine, but Jamie pushes him away. The device activates and sends her back to 1987. A girl helps her get to school, where Jamie discovers enrollment is easy and doesn't require paperwork. She's thrilled. She enters the gym and sees the 3 girls who will later be murdered, still alive. The coach calls her to join the game against her will, and Jamie notices how aggressive the game is. She asks one of the girls about her mother, and the girl tells her that Jamie's mom is known as the Wicked Witch, because she was cruel, arrogant, and mean. One of the girls hits Jamie in the face with the ball. After the game, Jamie talks to her and realizes just how terrible her mother was back then. Jamie tries to warn the police that a murder is about to happen, but the officer mocks her and says there has never been a murder in the town before. She asks if they've seen Back to the Future so she can explain her situation, but they dismiss her and tell her to go back to school. At school, Jamie looks for Lorraine, Amelia's mother, and speaks to her outside the club. Lorraine has seen Back to the Future, so Jamie explains everything. She tells her that her daughter used her notebook and successfully built a time machine. They go to see the device, and Lorraine realizes it worked when the killer stabbed the control panel, and that the machine needed an additional metallic element. Jamie convinces Lorraine to go with her to the party. There, Jamie sees someone bullying another person and yells at him. She realizes the three people standing in front of her are the principal, the coach, and the police officer when they were younger. They block her from entering the party, but Doc helps them sneak in through the back door. Inside the party, Jamie tries to talk to the girls, but they insult her. She leaves, then comes back again. When someone tries to throw her out a second time, she punches him and returns to tell the girls that they all need to stay together no matter what happens tonight. Jamie sees her mother upset because her father walked away from her when he found out she had been in a relationship with another guy who played in a band. Jamie writes in her notes that this is the same band her mother ends up hating in the future, and that the guy's name was Blake Hughes. Blake goes upstairs and tries to make a move on Tiffany, but she leaves him and goes into the bathroom. When she comes back out, he's gone. She sits down on the bed, and suddenly the masked killer appears. At first, she thinks it's her boyfriend, but he grabs her by the hair and stabs her 16 times, killing her. During that time, Jamie is searching for her. When she goes down to the garage, she doesn't find her, because time travel has caused changes in the timeline. Tiffany is now in Jamie's mother's bedroom. Jamie rushes upstairs, breaks down the door, and everyone is shocked to discover Tiffany's body. The police arrive at the scene, along with Sheriff Dennis, who is extremely aggressive and refuses to investigate his daughter's friend. He approaches Jamie, and she tells him she tried to warn them, but they didn't listen. He starts to suspect her, but Pam steps in and tells him Jamie was trying to save Tiffany, not harm her. Pam leaves the house upset, and Jamie goes with her. Jamie tells Pam that she's a psychic medium and knows things about the future, and that everyone in their group is going to die unless they stop it. They return to Pam's house, and Jamie asks if there's anyone who might hate their group, but the problem is that Pam lists a huge number of people who mocked him or ruined his life, making things even more complicated. Jamie then tells Pam that she's going to marry Blake Hughes in the future, but warns her not to get close to him right now. Pam is overjoyed, because she secretly had a crush on him for a long time. The two of them decide to work together to figure out who the killer really is. Lorraine repairs the time machine, and we return to the present timeline. Jamie's father is extremely worried because the police still don't know where she is. Amelia tells them that Jamie used a time machine and disappeared, but no one believes her, and they leave. Later, Chris goes to the house and finds her trying to build another time machine. At the same time, he remembers an important detail. Tiffany originally died in the garage, but now the news reports say she died on the bed in Jamie's mother's bedroom, meaning the timeline has completely changed. He shows old photos of the group, and they realize Jamie is in one of them. That's when they know the device worked and that Jamie's friend really did travel back in time to stop the murders. A message reaches them indirectly, telling them to use an additional metal component to make the machine work. They also find a message next to Tiffany's body. It contains the exact lyrics from an Eddie Royal song. We return to the past and see the police detaining Eddie Royal for questioning. Jamie says they're wasting their time and that he isn't the one responsible for the murders. She goes to talk to the group, and they all stay the same, except for Pam, who has changed slightly. In science class, Jamie convinces everyone to hold a small gathering to honor Tiffany by planting a tree in her memory. She asks them to write their names on a piece of paper because she wants to find out who sent the message to her mother. But the teacher walks in and pairs Jamie up with Damon as her lab partner. Jamie notices in his notebook that he's mentally unstable and had written the words, "Kill them all." After school, they pick her up in the car to celebrate a birthday. On the way, she asks them about Damon, and they tell her he spent a year in juvenile detention because he was constantly getting into fights. He spent the past year at home because of his sister Trish, who had been bullied and later died in a car accident. Jamie believes that someone who was bullied and had a violent sibling like Damon could be a suspect as well, but the girls reassure her. Jamie falls asleep until they arrive at the house where Marissa was killed. She's shocked when she realizes where they are. She also notices that more people have joined the party. She had thought only the 4 of them would be staying. The party continues, and Jamie tells them they all need to stay together in one place. But everyone goes outside and hangs out by the pool. We discover that the sheriff's daughter stole marijuana from the evidence locker and put it into the cake. Everyone becomes spaced out and unfocused, except Jamie, who eats some of it and feels completely fine. Trying to get everyone inside, Jamie tells them there's pizza in the house. They all go in, but the coach stops Jamie from entering and locks her outside. Inside, they search for the pizza, thinking Jamie hid it. Pam stops Blake Hughes and tries to get close to him, even though Jamie told her she wouldn't be with him for another 4 years. While cutting apples, Pam accidentally cuts herself. We see Heather asleep and Marissa standing alone. Jamie is locked outside, unable to get in. Suddenly, Jamie notices a strange person inside the house and tries to warn Marissa, but Marissa ignores her. Pam and Blake go upstairs together and are about to hook up. Jamie climbs up to a window and sees the killer trying to murder Heather. Heather wakes up, fights back, and runs away. At the same time, Jamie enters through the room where Pam was. They try to escape, but the killer blocks their path, forcing them to shut the door again. Heather collapses on the floor, and the killer comes down and stabs her. Blake tries to stop him, but the killer stabs him in the shoulder, then attacks Pam, knocking her to the ground. Jamie arrives and launches an attack. At the same time, Blake, the killer, escapes the scene quickly. Everyone then heads to the police station, where Jamie hands the officer the killer's DNA sample. The sheriff laughs at her, throws the DNA on the ground, and says it's completely useless. The next day, they return to school again. Jamie tries to stop Pam and Blake Hughes from getting close to each other, and she talks to Lorraine, urging her to fix the time machine as soon as possible. However, Lorraine is busy working on the new helmet she designed to transfer energy and send them back to the future. Jamie notices Damon arriving at school and parking near the party location. She starts to suspect him. She lets him enter, then sneaks into his car to search it, but finds it filled with video games. Suddenly, Damon shows up at the car. Jamie panics and tries to attack him, but he looks terrified and tells her she can take any game she wants, just not one specific game because it's very expensive. Doug arrives at the scene. He's part of the school police and tells them no one is allowed to leave campus during school hours unless they're wearing a badge. When he sees how many video games Damon has, he immediately starts talking to him about them. Later, Jamie goes to the amusement park to see if Lorraine managed to activate the time machine. Lorraine is still waiting for a specific power source, so the arcade ride in front of them becomes their only option to generate the energy they need. They go inside and tell the worker there are technical issues. He believes them and steps away to take a break. Lorraine stays behind to activate the time machine, while Jamie joins the others to protect Marissa. They tell her to go to the haunted house since that's where she usually is and to act completely normal. They also give her an alarm to use if she needs help. On the way, Jamie and Pam run into Kara and realize they're being suspected because of the most recent murder. They move on and sit inside the haunted house. Marissa starts looking around inside, and suddenly the killer enters, notices movement, and heads straight for Jamie, trying to kill her. The others arrive just in time, and Jamie stabs him with a knife. Kara then shows up and shoots him with her weapon, telling them she isn't the killer. When they remove the mask, everyone is shocked to discover it's Doug. It's revealed that he was in love with Trisha and had been dating her. Jamie is confused, wondering if he killed just because they bullied her. Marissa explains that they had heard a rumor that Trisha was having an affair with the coach, and they wanted to confirm it. They took her to the house, got her drunk, and kept asking her the same question. Tricia didn't want to answer and apparently called Doug. After that, they left her to drive home alone while she was drunk, and that's what caused the accident that killed her. Jamie yells at Pam, accusing her of causing something like that to happen, but Pam insists she wasn't there at the time and would never have done anything like that. Suddenly, another killer appears and stabs Heather, then runs away. Kara chases after him and fires her gun, but none of the shots hit him. Jamie is confused and says the killer must be Doug from the future, but Lorraine explains that it can't be future Doug, because past Doug is dead, which means his future version would be dead too. We cut to the present timeline. Lorraine returns home and finds her daughter Amelia lying on the floor, bleeding. This makes everyone suspect Chris Dupassage, since he was the last person with her when the time machine was being activated. Everyone starts running as the killer chases Jamie. During the pursuit, he kills the TV host, who turns out to be Chris's father. Jamie jumps into the machine, and Lorraine tries to pull her out, but the killer reaches them. Lorraine manages to dodge him and escapes the ride. Suddenly, Pam attacks the killer and throws him to the ground. Jamie steps in to help, but he throws her down next to Pam. The machine starts spinning, and everyone gets stuck inside the ride. The killer, however, is still able to move and walks toward Pam. Jamie rushes to the controls to eject Pam from the ride, but the killer reaches Pam first and stabs her in the stomach. Despite this, Jamie manages to throw Pam out of the ride. At that moment, the killer's mask comes off, revealing that it's Chris Dupassage, the journalist. He admits that he killed Jamie's mother twice and murdered his own father because he never cared about him when he was a child. He charges at Jamie, but she manages to shoot him with a nail gun, sending him backward into the electromagnetic field. Jamie successfully returns to her own time and runs home, where she finds her mother alive. Lorraine and Amelia arrive, and Jamie realizes they came because they're used to celebrating Halloween together every year. Lorraine takes Jamie outside and writes down everything Jamie has lived through in a notebook to help her remember her previous life, because so many things have changed. Her parents got together immediately in this timeline and now have a 4-year-old son named Jamie, meaning the name, Jamie, now belongs to her brother. Jamie is shocked to learn that her name is now Colette. Lorraine explains everything in the notebook, especially that after his father's death, Chris went to a monastery in India and stayed there. Still, Lorraine continues to keep a close watch. And that's where the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.